so much for having me here today. I feel very honored to be part of this great conference with so many great Cosmos leadership and devs, and also to see so many great new faces here, hopefully who are going to be part of the next iteration of the Cosmos ecosystem. So for today's talk, instead of sort of talking about the technical aspects of gravity, I wanted to focus on the context and insights that went into the design decisions around Gravity Bridge. For Gravity, we didn't want to build, just another blockchain bridge company, right? We're not trying to reinvent legacy systems in a blockchain world. Instead, our aspiration was to create a neutral, agnostic, and decentralized system that would be resilient and sustainable for years to come. So for some context, I am the CEO and co-founder of Althea. And Althea is a decentralized routing and meter billing platform for bandwidth networks. And we're going to get into that a little bit later here, kind of take a detour over there and explain why that system design thinking informed what we did in Gravity Bridge. But what is Gravity Bridge, right? So it is a neutral and decentralized blockchain bridge for Ethereum, EVM, and Cosmos ecosystems. It's operated by the Cosmos validators and an independent free market of relayers. So right now, Cosmos Gravity Bridge is being used by Cosmos blockchains to send Ethereum representations of their tokens to Ethereum, right? Like Chihuahua Coin has a ETH representation that they use through Gravity Bridge. Or how Althea wants to use it is you have Ethereum tokens that are being used on the Cosmos ecosystem. So Persistence is using the Gravity Bridge in this way, right? They have a ETH token. You have a permissionless front end, so they use their own front end to send that across to their Cosmos blockchain. And another neat feature to Gravity Bridge is the new IBC forwarding. So, when you send an Ethereum token from Ethereum to Gravity and then on through IBC to Cosmos, that can create two transactions. But in our latest iteration and update, we have an IBC forwarding module that sort of obfuscates all of that process behind the scenes. So that detour I mentioned over to Althea, we're going to take that now when we talk about some of the design and reasons why we built Gravity Bridge the way we did. So when we look at Althea, it's a decentralized internet system, right? It's not that much different, between interoperating with bandwidth on the internet than it is interoperating with tokens in a blockchain system, right? So a lot of these things that we found to be applicable in internet systems also sort of translate to blockchain as well. So if we think about the way the internet is bought and sold now, at least in the United States, it's a user capture model, right? They build a pipe, fiber optic antennas, or whatever, and that connects to the user, and then they extract as much value as they can from that. This is a very centralized and brittle model, right? What happens here? The provider of this bandwidth is then very misaligned with the user. The carrier in this case is very much incentivized to give the worst quality service they could possibly get away with, and then extract the most value, and then sort of keep that user sticky by contractual obligations or other kinds of monopolies, or making it very hard to switch. This is not the kind of system that we would want to build, right? Now, when we were looking at the internet, we found a place, actually, in fact, where things are bought and sold in an interoperable and open marketplace. This is at the internet exchange, right? So every major city has a place where all the carriers come and sell bandwidth to each other based on bandwidth as a commodity, right? So this is a volume-based transaction. And what's happened here in this open and interoperable marketplace is that bandwidth costs year over year have gone down, and bandwidth volume year over year has gone up. So we can see that these, and this is for the past 20, 25 years, right? That that these systems have been in place. So we can very much see over the history of time that although a centralized user capture model seems attractive at first, and certainly is attractive if you're running a business, that these systems become brittle, they misalign with the user, and end up ultimately failing, which is why in the United States we have a terrible digital divide. In fact, in I think New York City, it's somewhere around 15 to 18% of people there don't have access to broadband, despite having access to wired connection. The other thing with this is it doesn't work for the carriers either. So if you think about it, it's very capital inefficient. They have to build a new piece of fiber or glass or antenna every time they have to go. They want to capture more value, right? So you can see a bit why these sort of principles also apply to blockchain bridges as well, right? On the one hand, you could focus on the exclusivity of a silo to capturing the user, right? You might focus on making simple UX, making it very easy, right? And then that creates kind of a permissioned and exclusive environment, capturing the user and extracting the most value from that. But again, as the same as with the internet example, you end up with a rigid system where there's not diversity. And then what you'll see is going to happen there is that fees will continue to rise. The system becomes a centralization risk, an attack surface there, and ultimately might end up with a failing model, as opposed to an open access model where you're looking at creating lots of volume, right? You're going to create a neutral and permissionless interface where blockchains can integrate with it. New front ends can come along, right? This also creates resiliency. Should one front end go down, should there be issues with censorship as well? So here's kind of how this can manifest itself in the ways that we not only build design, but also in the ways that we market, right? So what we see, right? So who is the user of a bridge, right? Who's the user of a blockchain bridge? And I think that's a really salient question, because when you're a blockchain business, you might say, hey, my user is the end user, the person who's going to send Ethereum over to Cosmos. So I am going to sell something fancy and shiny and package it well to market toward that end user. So you've got all these things like over here you can see with the cat toy here. You got all these little edges and things like that. That's going to work for a while, because we don't really care in this case once they bring it home. Once they use it, I've got them. They're captured, they're sticky. I can raise fees, it doesn't matter. But if in the case of gravity, we start to think about systems differently, and we don't think, we design for a neutral surface area, an actual piece of infrastructure, then we can see the other blockchain projects as the actual customer, right? So like a business to customer use case in business, I would invite us to start thinking about blockchain to user, or B2B to you. And in this case, what does that other blockchain need? Well, if we think about Althea, also as a user here, you need reliability, security, and affordability. You need that bridge to work, and for you not to think about it, for you to be able to integrate it with your project, for it to have security, for it to be boring. And we think these kinds of systems are the systems we want to build. If we were here to build more corporate types of architecture in a blockchain world, I don't think we would be at this conference, right? We're here because we believe in a better way of doing things. And I fundamentally also think that we should be looking at bridges as infrastructure, right? And this is why the B2B2U model makes sense. This is an aqueduct or a sewer system or a road, right? These are things that we need to think about in terms of where they fit in the ecosystem, how they interact with other blockchains. And because we built Gravity this way, excited to share with you some of the successes that it has seen, that we have seen this model play out. Gravity is actually the most gas and fee efficient bridge by at least half in the Cosmos ecosystem right now, with fees as low as $10. That's because fees, or the way that we send transactions, are batched. So all of the transactions from Cosmos back to Ethereum are put in a batch, and then gas fees are spread across those batches there. We also have a open free market of relayers that can take that transaction as well too. So these two things create positive fee efficiency, right? So unlike a more corporate type of model where you have one relayer, maybe you're doing kind of all of those batchings, that might seem good at kind of first. You have that efficiency for that, and certainly in lower scale models that might end up being actually preferred by the consumer. But what happens there as time goes on with the centralized system is those fees are going to go up, right? The pressure is to more and more extract that value. Whereas if we have an open free market of relayers, there is competitiveness between the relayers, as well as batching the transactions. Volume goes up, costs go down. Just like that internet model we saw earlier that we found to be true year over year, we're now also finding this to be true in Gravity, even as early as we are on the project. This also sort of leads us to create real neutrality as opposed to centralizing an exclusivity around these kind of silos, right? And that real neutrality is what's going to bring in additional volume, and then again, sort of that great positive feedback loop. So I'm really proud about this particular slide. So this sort of shares the history of Gravity Bridge and its kind of place in the Cosmos ecosystem. And so we started building Gravity back in like late 2019, early 2020. And it really even started before then as the Peggy Bridge, which was part of the SIFT-Chain team's implementation. But then it grew to sort of take on its own iteration with us, and now lives as an open source protocol. And many folks have taken that, like Injective, Sommelier, and Umi, sorry, and have been using. I believe Injective's been using it now for about a year, right? But this idea of open access and then, of course, open source is a little bit of like a Linux type model, right? Folks can take it, capitalize on it in their own way. And then for those that running their own module doesn't fit, they can also just utilize the permissionless and neutral bridge. But this creates an infrastructure that will have continuous and sustainable development and innovation, which I also think is exciting. I mean, that's what when we open source and we don't silo in permission, we do get diversity of thought and innovation, and we create something that will live far beyond its initial instance. The other exciting thing is Gravity has been kind of leading the way in some of these integration projects. For example, in the NFT space, we've been working with the Stargaze community and many others in NFTs to bring interoperable NFTs from Ethereum, ERC 721s, through the bridge to interoperable ICS 721s in IBC. So to do that, we actually just launched, and the community is voting on the ICS 721 working group. And that will be a conglomeration of many different Cosmos NFT projects coming together with the Bridge group to really start to work on that together. So I think it's just another great integration that the Gravity is spearheading, but also sort of speaks to our underlying place in the ecosystem. We also have an amazing active community of validators and relayers, one in which I am always astonished and very much yes, validators. I feel like I should do the validators thing, but Anyway, continue to be impressed by them. We just did an update that was, I think, like 45 minutes from start to finish and very smooth and really just a testament to the amazing validators we have in the Cosmos ecosystem. But I did also want to share that Gravity has been in testnets since 2020, late 2020, and really has been an integral part and a long part of the Cosmos ecosystem. Last thing I want to point out on this slide too before I head out is the Decentralized Governance and Working Group. This is another thing that I'm excited to start working on with the Gravity community. And this is the idea of a working group. So Cosmos governance is great. There's a few good tools there, but it's very binary, right? And it requires that everyone in the community have specialized knowledge, which isn't very realistic, right? So one of the things that Gravity has been innovating on is this idea of a federated or sub-DAO working group that then could send a representative, and like potentially elected representative, up to a main DAO, right? That sort of manages the larger affairs. But this allows for specialized working groups in marketing and the development and community that then can work on the day-to-day projects and also sort of communicate them with the larger ecosystem. So I think that what we'll see from that is, again, this is all about this like larger decentralized design as opposed to just another business, right, who's going to hire people. This is meant to be a sustainable infrastructure and a structure for governance as well. So here's a few of our folks that we are interacting with in the Cosmos ecosystem. Like I said earlier, Cosmos chains use the bridge to have representation of their tokens on Ethereum, or to send stable coins from Ethereum or other Ethereum type tokens. Like Persistent sends their own Ethereum tokens across to the Gravity bridge as well, which I think is quite interesting. And there's a couple of our front ends by the Cosmos Station community and Blockscape, and many people build their own as well. And so what's coming up? I've got some few good things in the works as well. More DEX integrations. The new Evmos ecosystem brings kinesis and diffusion. We have a SIF chain integration as well. One of the things that I think is neat about SIF chain and that potential integration is we can now begin that conversation around token fungibility. And the SIF chain community has been really great at spearheading that. Actually, years ago, started the conversation around bridge fungibility. And for some context there, when you send something over, like the Axelar bridge versus the Gravity bridge, are going to be different representations that aren't tradable with each other. So Axelar DAI versus Gravity DAI are not going to be fungible with each other natively. So what are we going to, how are we going to iterate on that, and what are the next steps on that? And so I think, like we have the ICS NFT working group, we also hope to be part of sort of spearheading what that can look like in terms of the ecosystem as a whole too. Crescent DEX was just a new DEX that just launched, was part of the Gravity DEX, and now, so it's very fitting that we'll also be integrating stables and a Grav pool there as well. The Gravity groups that we just referenced earlier is just growing. We would really invite folks to be part of that ecosystem, to get involved. We have a great Discord community. You can jump in there, and they will, of course, welcome you with questions. And I am also happy to answer questions here as well.
Thank you, Deborah. And indeed, we have 2 questions for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
So the first one is, how do you acquire and attract new users?
That's a good question, right? So when kind of the point of the talk was that in this case, we are looking at integrating with lots of blockchain bridges. So we do a lot of, communicating with new blockchain bridges that are upcoming, or seeing if we're a good fit for them. So a lot of the conversations are with the bridges themselves or the validator community. So a lot of folks will reach out to us, and see if we're a good fit for them. Oftentimes, most Cosmos app bridges have a need for some, or blockchains have a need for some bridge integration.
Another question is, what is the difference between Gravity Bridge and FMOS? Maybe you could give us like an explanation from a very broad level.
Yeah, that's a good question. So EVMOS is a EVM-based blockchain itself, right? So you can have Ethereum in the blockchain itself, and you can run, for example, we had the Kinesis, right? So Kinesis has an Ethereum application. They could run it natively on the EVMOS chain, right? Whereas Gravity is a blockchain bridge, meaning tokens from the ETH side come across, get locked up, and then minted on the Cosmos side. So you'll send ETH to the bridge, and then get Gravity ETH on the other side there. That's how that basically works.
Yeah, very good explanation. And one more question is, when are you planning to start the testnet? So the next testnet, will it be incentivized?
That's a great question. Do you know if that question is for Gravity or for Althea? I'll talk about both. Because Gravity is actually in production. We launched in the middle of December with an amazing validator set of over 100 people in that in that launch, and has been live, since then through multiple upgrades. It is permissionless validator set though, so if folks do want to validate on the Gravity bridge, they think the limit right now is 200, and we haven't reached it. So you need just as little as one grav, jump in there, validate on the Gravity bridge. For the Althea, so that's the decentralized bandwidth marketplace, we started back in 2018, and we've been on the XDAI ecosystem and are now launching probably late June our own blockchain on Cosmos. Woo, exciting, finally. So for that, we will have a testnet, and so I also invite folks to get involved there.
Yeah, I just got one more question. It just popped up. Do you believe in bridge diversity or a single instance of a bridge between ecosystems?
This is also a great question. So early on, when we started to develop the bridge, I had the idea that perhaps standardization was the way to go. But now as the ecosystems evolve, I think that's not the reality, right? We are in a multi-bridge, multi-DEX, multi-stablecoin world, and it will continue to iterate. So I think ultimately this is probably better. Diversity is more resilient than a centralized instance. So I think now we do have some other questions to ask, right, around token fungibility and liquidity and things like that. So I'm looking forward to the new multi-bridge, multi-chain world, though.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thanks so much.
So for